So just about an hour ago, Saskatchewan laid out its plan to reach full immunization, both doses. The provincial government says everyone who's eligible should have got 2 doses of the vaccine by July 31st, and that includes teens.
Yesterday, Health Canada approved the Pfizer vaccine for everyone 12 years of age and older. This is great news, as it means another 91,000 young people in our province can now be vaccinated. We plan to offer vaccines in the schools before the end of the school year.
Right now, people aged 35 and over can make vaccine appointments in Saskatchewan. For those living in the north, it's actually from age 18 and up. Now, according to our CBC tracker, nearly 37% of the provincial population has now received at least 1 dose. Let's go to Scott Moe, who is the Premier of Saskatchewan and joins us now from Regina. Premier Moe, how are you?
I'm doing great. David, how are you doing?
Very well. Thank you for joining us today. I wanted to ask you, because July 31st is really laying down the gauntlet about when you expect everyone who wants one to have had a second dose. What makes you so confident you'll be able to reach that?
Well, if our supply of vaccines is what the federal government is committed to, we will reach that. We've worked very hard at administering those vaccines in Saskatchewan using a multitude of avenues to offer them to Saskatchewan people. We have an appointment-based system. We have drive-through clinics that are working in multiple communities. And now, most recently, we've brought on our pharmaceutical capacity that is also delivering vaccines in communities right across Saskatchewan. So we have had a vaccination administration effort that we've been very proud of, and it is we're working very hard as quickly as we receive these vaccines. We're making them available to Saskatchewan people because, as we often say, the road out of this pandemic for us does lead through one of our vaccination clinics.
And when you look at the second dose, a lot of provinces have been operating on the 16-week, the 4-month plan, delay in between those two. Your plan now 13 weeks. Do you think you'll actually be able to shrink it even more as these new vaccine supplies come online?
Yes, we will. And the reason Canada is even considering the 16-week plan is because we've had, a poor performance in procuring vaccines in the early days when they've been available to other areas of the world. So we had to look at a longer interval between our shots to protect as many people more broadly across our communities as we could in Saskatchewan, and everyone in Canada is doing something very similar. We'll likely start at about 13 weeks with our second doses. We're going to start that in the middle of May. It will actually, our second doses of our people that are elderly that got our first doses will overlap actually with the youngest of people that are getting those first doses. So we'll be doing 12, 15, 18-year-olds at the very same time that we're bringing in our 80, 85-year-old people for their second dose. We'll be doing all of that at the same time and then offering that second dose to every Saskatchewan resident by the end of July.
I want to ask you about AstraZeneca because there is some continued hesitancy out there. You're relying on AstraZeneca doses to get through this second dose plan. Do you have concerns about buy-in from people?
I don't know. We have a number of AstraZeneca vaccines that we've administered over the course of the past few months, and we're confident that we will have access to the enough AstraZeneca for second doses for those Saskatchewan people that did receive their first dose. The vast majority, in fact, virtually all of our AstraZeneca doses did go to people that were 50, 55 years and older. Mm-hmm. However, there are a small percentage that did go to people that were younger than that. And we'll have that conversation with them individually. But I don't see a problem with either the procuring the second dose AstraZeneca vaccines or vaccine uptake for those. They all prevent serious outcomes of COVID, hospitalization, and ultimately fatalities. And we just are grateful for the vaccines that we do have and have been able to make available to Saskatchewan people.
How would you classify the procurement of vaccines at this moment? Right now, you said the earlier one was slow. How would you say it is now?
It's improving. It is improving, and we've gotten our first dose of increased Pfizer shipment here this week. Moderna is still a little bit erratic with what is coming. However, we did receive Moderna a day or two early this week, from what I was just told a few minutes ago. Mm-hmm. So it has been erratic to this point, and slightly disappointing at times, but it does look to be picking up. We've been told we'll get 368,000 doses in the province. We're just under 500,000 that have been administered thus far. 368 would be in May, pardon me. And we're making every effort to ensure that we can make every one of those vaccines available to Saskatchewan people. That is going to allow us to reopen our communities, of which we do have a 3-step, very simple, straightforward plan to do in the next number of weeks and month and a half or 2 months. And without the access to these large numbers of vaccines, we just simply wouldn't be able to do that.
You talk about the plan to loosen restrictions, your 3-step plan. You unveiled it earlier this week. It is sort of contingent on first doses. So it's when 70% of a particular age threshold of people have got their first doses. Why just the first dose? Because as we know, the science tells us there isn't the complete protection until the second dose.
Yeah, but there's substantial protection with the first dose, and we're aware there's modeling out there that is released weekly across Canada and in Saskatchewan. We're also aware of what has worked. When you look at the UK, they have been broadly, I would say, quite successful with not only the administration of their first dose of vaccines, largely AstraZeneca in that country, and it has driven down the other measurable metrics and severe outcomes of COVID, hospitalizations, fatalities. And so it's been broadly successful, in particular in the UK, using that first dose effort. And we expect similar results. And we're already starting to see the early days of those results in Saskatchewan. Our caseload is down 25% in the last 3 weeks. Our hospitalizations are down about a similar percentage. So it is working. However, in saying that, very important for everyone to go back and get their second dose. COVID in the months ahead is preventable. It's preventable by making the choice to receive a vaccine. The severe outcomes for sure are preventable if you just make that simple choice.
Premier, can I ask you about vaccine transmission in your province? I know you don't have an airport where international travelers would arrive. People would probably go to Calgary and drive back down the Trans-Canada or the Yellowhead. Let me ask you, though, are you concerned that any variant transmission in your province is being substantially driven by travelers returning from an international destination?
Well, yes, you're correct. We don't have an international airport. However, we have had variants come into the province, most particularly in Regina. We've been battling the variants for some time, and they are predominant across the province now. And we are in a race, as everyone else is, between the variants and the vaccines. International travel is how they arrive, but community transmission is how they are ultimately spreading throughout our communities, and they are the dominant type of COVID that we are dealing with in Saskatchewan, like many other places across Canada. There is some international travel that is proving to be highly beneficial to Saskatchewan residents, and that is our cross-border essential services. Truckers, some energy workers are crossing down into North Dakota to do their work, and when they come back, we've struck a deal with the Governor Burgum from North Dakota, where they are actually vaccinating Saskatchewan truckers and Manitoba, south of Manitoba, Winnipeg, vaccinating them with American vaccines, with American resources. And we're so very appreciative in the very strong relationship and friendship that we have with the state of North Dakota.
Just in terms of flights, would you like to see them substantially curtailed, the number of flights arriving from international destinations, beyond the extent to which they've already been curtailed?
Well, there is some essential travel, and there is concern of further variants entering the nation. I know, Premier Ford and others that do have international airports and international travel have some great concerns with respect to that. Also, some concerns with even flying into areas just south of the border and crossing. And so I think this is where we need to be aware of the diversity that we have across this nation. What's happening maybe in Ontario, Quebec, and maybe even British Columbia in border crossing travel and international flight travel is somewhat different in Saskatchewan. Our experience with land border crossings, as I said, is we have a neighbor to the south of us vaccinating our residents that are coming back into Saskatchewan, and for that we say thank you. And the international flights are being screened at other locations as they land, as we haven't had an international flight into Saskatchewan for some time now. However, we will have as we reopen our communities and reopen our opportunities. And so we're aware of the challenge there and, paying close attention. But at some point, we are going to have to start taking steps forward. As I said, COVID is preventable. It's preventable by getting a vaccine. And pretty soon in Canada, everyone is going to have that opportunity. And I would encourage everyone to take that first vaccine that's offered, because it obviously will provide us with the opportunity to start to think about traveling internationally again.
Premier Scott Moe of Saskatchewan, thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Anytime. You have a great week.
You too.
Hi, I'm Vashi Capellos, host of Power in Politics. See more of our show by subscribing to the CBC News channel or click the link for another video.